Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka BlenderHD, BlenderHD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and it's Thursday, January 18th. We'll be taking a look at tonight's 11-game NHL DFS slate. We got some basketball today, also later on Grinders Live and Crunch Time. Obviously, also props and pick'em. Get our props and pick'em package. If you're not playing DFS and you just want props and pick'em using our statistical projections, you can get that package individually, and your first week is like $9.99. It's way too cheap. Way too cheap. So get it while it still lasts. But joining me today, back but not with actual internet as opposed to Tuesday, it's Tim BUELL for an NHL slate that I don't know seems a little bit more wide open than I expected. There may be some chalky value, but I don't know. From a ceiling perspective, it feels like I could go multiple places. Are we waiting on any news? I know I'm in the Discord. I always check the Discord because it is the best place for NHL news. rotogrinders.com/Discord. Are we waiting on like any type of like injury news or anything? It doesn't seem like it, but maybe we are.
No, some minor news out of Seattle, but I mean that's not going to like make or break the slate. Nick Schmaltz perhaps is important. Johnny Huberdeau for the Flames, but that's really about it. It looks like Sean Couturier and Jamie Drysdale are not at morning skate, so that would hurt any kind of plays from Philly a little bit. But really, nothing like on the high end that's that important.
Well, how about Dane in the chat? So how about Ovechkin? Because I know he didn't come back on Tuesday. I know because he played the Capitals that didn't work out. On Tuesday, I played the low-owned Senators, did well with them, but I paired them with the Washington value, and other than TJ Oshie kind of scoring some points, it really didn't work out as I planned. But I mean, that's gonna matter. I mean, that should matter. I mean, Ovechkin. I mean, on Tuesday he was cheap. I mean, he's like 6K or something, right? 6,300.
He's very very cheap. So yeah, I guess that is the important news that I missed. But yeah, nothing huge. I would say is that important.
Well, one thing that I look at first, right? Being I'm a numbers person, right? I trust our projections. I think we have the best NHL projections in the industry. Is just getting a sense of the slate. Now, you could run just like 300 lineups in lineup HQ. You could run different stack combinations or everything like that. But I like going to this DFS stack values tool for DraftKings that we have on the site. And I like sorting by value based on, the mean projections that we have. And then that is we're looking at like raw, like value, like point per dollar value, but like value, but still good enough raw points. And it seems like if you were to run 300 lineups in lineup HQ using like 3-3, 3-2 type of combinations, it seems like you'd be getting a bunch of Ottawa, power play 1, line 1, Greg, Tkachuk, Giroux, right?
Yep.
You'd be getting a decent amount of like that whole game, like Montreal 1 with Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky, who I'm never a big fan of playing chalky Montreal pieces because the Canadians aren't good. The third one that stands out is the Sabres, right? We scroll down a bit. You get, Tooch and Middlestat, Tage Thompson. You could throw in like the power play unit with like Quinn or something. And then from like a high-end perspective, if you're going to spend salary, it seems like top of the projections, you're going to be spending, a good chunk of your cap on Tampa power play 1. Even though Kucherov, when we take a look at Kucherov, isn't the best projected of like those 9K players, like Pasternak is ahead of him, and of course we always have McKinnon there. But how much? How much are you targeting really this like I feel like this Colorado-Boston game, I don't know, it feels like pairing people up. Like Pasternak, I can see playing by himself I could see,
Right.
McKinnon. I just, it feels like I'd much rather either go down the middle or play Tampa Bay with Kucherov and Point and Hedman. Like it feels like I could get a lot more on Tampa Bay's one line, especially with the Wild, not necessarily looking like the best of defensive teams.
Correct. Yeah. I think the high end pieces of the slate is the most fascinating part of the slate because like usually we want to jam in these high end studs, but they're not in like these fantastic matchups like McKinnon going into Boston, Pasternak against Colorado. Like they're not like these amazing spots. So, and I do agree with you. Ottawa is going to be the chalk if there is going to be chalk. Like they're going to be the highest owned. Kachuk, Giroux, perhaps Batherson, Stutzel, that kind of power play one stack is going to be quite popular. I'm very much looking forward to seeing like what actually comes out in terms of lineup construction on these high end pieces because they really don't stand out to me. Like I put in expert server today my favorite cash game skater as Brady Kachuk. I normally never do that. Usually I put like, Nathan McKinnon or David Pasternak or Connor McDavid, but they're so expensive. They're not in the best spots, and Kachuk is 7,600. So I imagine he's going to be a very, very popular piece today. So yeah, like there's a lot of different ways that people can play these high dollar players, and it's just gonna be interesting to see what people play.
Right, going through some of these projections, I mean, it seems like there are way more guys in like the 6 to 8K range that have projections in the 14-point range, that jamming those types of players in rather than paying up for an Austin Matthews or a McKinnon and going like the barbell type of build. Because is there really like this to me? I mean, just looking at point per dollar value, just in lineup HQ, there's no really like standout like cheap guy. Like you could say that's like, well, how about like Harvey Pinard or Slavkovsky, one of these like Montreal guys? But it's like
Right.
they're projecting for like 7, 8 median points. It's not no, right. These are like would you rather do that or play a cheap defenseman or anything? It feels like you scroll down a bunch and then you get to like Cole Caulfield. And I feel like
Yeah.
these guys in like the
Yeah.
5, 6K range, I'd much rather play a one-off Caulfield, right? With a whole bunch of other
Mm,
4K defensemen and 6 to 8K wingers and maybe a cheap center or something like that, than kind of like, well, I'm gonna play, Colorado power play one and play like McKinnon, Rantanen, Druin. Like I mean, I mean, if you look at our stack rankings, it will essentially tell you that. Because even if we go
right.
by average projection, like to me, the sneaky, if you want to call it the sneaky
Mm,
play on the slate, I think is
mm-hmm.
Edmonton against
Yep.
Seattle,
Yep.
because I think Tampa Bay one is gonna is gonna be higher owned than Edmonton, and I think they're both in similar spots. And I think that you could pair McDavid with Nugent Hopkins with Draisaitl, with like I always like to me in NHL DFS, my favorite one off is always Draisaitl, because he
Right.
plays on that he plays on the power play, but he also plays on the
Yep.
second line. So like I feel like I could play him and not need to play like McDavid also, right? Yet when you play like
Yep.
it's very hard to do that with Rantanen because he plays on the same line as McKinnon. So if Rantanen does well, most probably McKinnon has done well. At least with Draisaitl, like you could say that his other line mates have fed him the points, and it's not just the power play. And also, you got a lot more people to choose from. You could play Bouchard, you could play Kane or someone like that on Edmonton, and it's a less straightforward. But I don't know. Would you rather? Would you
Dry,
rather?
dry, yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask. It's like, would you rather play as a one-off? Because we talk about this all the time, about like these high price guys where if other people on their line or power play line are going to be also kind of chalky with them, you'd rather not play the high price piece as a one-off because the low price pieces tend to go, if Nathan McKinnon has 3 assists, it's probably like, Druin probably scored a
Or
goal, but
and Rantanen, yeah, Rantanen,
right. So
yeah,
people like that.
yeah.
So I don't know, would you play Kucherov as a one-off, knowing that it's quite likely that Point and Stamkos combinatorically may actually come in? If you're going to pay 9,800 for Kucherov, you're probably playing those guys rather than the the Ottawa guys in that range or the Buffalo guys in that range. That Kucherov would be the non-one-off. Yet, it feels like Pasternak, on the other hand, less people are playing Marchand and Coyle and those types of guys.
Yeah, so the Lightning have the best power play in the NHL, while the Wild have one of the worst penalty kills in the NHL. So I'm worried that the Lightning's goals will come on the power play. So Kucherov would likely bring other pieces with him. There are guys like Pasternak that I would definitely play as a one-off. One, I don't think he'll be highly owned, and two, he can do it all by himself. So Pasternak would be the guy in this high end. Obviously, Connor McDavid too. You could do that as well. But Pasternak and Connor McDavid would be my one-offs. While I think Kucherov likely will bring along his power play and even strength line mates.
Right, which makes me I don't mind playing Point or Stamkos as a one-off. Only because they're cheaper, at least. They're $7K. I mean, they're not cheap, but they're cheap enough that if Kucherov could, the whole point that I always make here about these expensive guys is that 20 points isn't good enough in GPP. It's fine. Right. It's not like you could still win with Kucherov 20 points, sure. And 20 points sounds like a lot to a lot of people, but at 9,800, 20 points by themselves is not you can find that in the rest of your lineup somewhere. Are you getting because you're ending up playing some $3,100 defender that may only score 2 points, right? You need these high price guys to put up 25, 30 points. That if Stamkos has 2 goals and he's sitting there on 23 points at 6,900, 23 points is pretty damn good, right? Because there's a nearly $3,000 gap that instead of playing that 3K defender that may only have 3 points, you're playing a 6K defender that may have 18 points. And now your whole lineup looks better. So I always get into these situations where I'm building lineups, especially for smaller field contests, where I like to set up these little groups of, if I'm going to play Tampa Bay power play 1, I'm going to and Kucherov, I'm going to play it as the line. And then just make a group where it's if Kucherov is in the lineup, he needs to have at least 2 of his power play unit teammates with him. So I'm not I don't end up getting him. Yet with Pasternak or McDavid today, or even Matthews or McKinnon, I just feel like it's quite possible these 9K guys aren't as owned as they would normally be on a slate, because there's no standout 3K winger value that people are jamming in, or 4K winger value. It's kind of
and I think that just what I'm seeing and sensing, I guess, is that the raw point potential for this slate is lower than normal in terms of these high end guys, right? So jamming in these high end guys and then having to go low might end up being not optimal. Right. So getting to these mid-range guys might be more optimal. But the problem with that is that's going to be the more popular way to go. Right. You go to this Ottawa team that's in the mid-range, or Buffalo that's in the mid-range. They're going to be highly owned. I'm pretty sure anyway. So teams like Buffalo, teams like Ottawa, teams like Montreal, like they're all kind of in that mid range. They're gonna garner some ownership, but I don't think it's
But
gonna be
there's a
like
lot more up, but Tim,
right,
the mid
yeah,
range there's a lot more. Like you're mentioning, it's like,
right,
well, everyone's going to play these mid range options. It's like, well, you just mentioned 3 teams, and there's 22 teams on the slate.
right,
Uh,
exactly,
I take a look
yeah,
here's because I take a look at the line, who the big favorites are, and a team that's in the mid range, maybe a slightly overpriced, that you would play instead of Tampa Bay. They would rate out lower. What about Vancouver against Arizona?
yeah. I mean, that we've done enough shows together that I always love Vancouver because they have massive ceilings. They're fully correlated on the top line. They don't usually project well. So it's like, are they going to get a little bit forgotten on this slate? I think so because they often do. And so I love Vancouver almost always in large field GPPs. I think that's a great call by you. We do have a question in chat. Is Harvey Pinard a good cheap one-off? I don't think so. Not in large field GPPs because he's going to be probably the most popular cheapy one-off, right? So in cash games, Harvey Pinard is a great play. Like he's a guy you play in cash, but as a cheap one-off in GPP, I don't really like that play very much, just because he's going to be popular and we have a lot of options to choose from.
Like I'd play him. Like if you're going to play Harvey Pinard, pair him with someone that correlates with him because most people won't.
Correct.
Playing with a Gallagher,
Right.
playing with Guel, playing with a PP2 guy on Montreal.
Yeah.
My attitude on this slate for smaller field contests, I'm focused more on the 100 to 500 entry contest. That like I don't even want to play. I don't even think I'm going to play a guy that is 2,700. Like I'm not playing that construction to begin with. And I take a look from a value perspective, only because I saw. Remember, I only play like Tuesdays and Thursdays NHL, sometimes Saturday.
Yep.
So I always load up the slate, the night before, create my dummy lineups, and I didn't realize that Jack Eichel was on the IR. So I'm like, this. I know they're underdogs to the Rangers, but how do I not?
Chandler
take a
Stevenson
PP1 unit that looks like it's two $3,600 players and a $5,800 Stone? And not only are they on the power play, but they also correlate to line 1. So it's like you get even strength correlation and power play 1 correlation. Obviously, you could throw on a Martinez or a Marshall, right? Or Marshall's, however you pronounce his name, but he's on line 2. But like these guys just seem too cheap.
I will tell you that they are priced for their matchup. They have a 2.77 implied goal total. So right. So that is why they're that cheap. So I'm not saying they're bad, but I would say they are priced for a really, really tough matchup against the Rangers.
But for their price, I mean, if you were going to pay, I mean, they're also projected that way. I mean, Stone is 5,800 and it doesn't even project for 10 median points. So like this team does not actually rate out well. I'm looking more at like Stevenson and Dorofeyev and these guys. I mean, they as a cheat, like to me, maybe I don't play Vegas as like a 4-man, right? I'm not playing like PP1 4-man, but twosies. Like playing playing a Stevenson or a Dorofeyev as a one-off, playing them together with like Alex Martinez or something like that. Even dude, like even getting away with like a Nicholas Roy as a one-off 3,200. Like I'm just looking at these guys going, I don't think people are going to play Vegas for the same reason that you would mention. The goal total is awful.
Right.
But Montreal is an underdog also. I mean, like Montreal sucks, and they're going to be like 5 times his own. So like I look at like why is Slavkovsky going to end up being like 15% owned while these Vegas guys will be 3% owned, and Like why? Like only because it's like, oh well, Caulfield is cheap and Suzuki and Ottawa's power penalty kill sucks, or even strength. They defensively they're bad, right? But Montreal sucks. I said that about the Capitals on Tuesday. I was on this show because you couldn't make it, and I'm like, Capitals show value if Ovechkin doesn't play. But I made the big disclaimer that the Capitals are not like volume shooters or anything. So like the Capitals could easily win this game 2-0, and then you look at your lineups and you wonder where the points are. Right? You look at that and you go, no one gets the 5-shot bonus. No one has more than 1 point. And you're like, what happened there? Like, I don't think they go out and score 6 goals. I say the same about Montreal. Montreal could win this game 2-1, and you're sitting there going, where did all the points go?
Yeah, we had this game, I think it was Tuesday night, San Jose against Chicago, and Chicago got a ton of ownership, but Chicago's terrible. And people want to stream against San Jose, which is fine, but Chicago sucks. And the game finished 2-1. It was like nobody got there. So it's the same kind of deal with Montreal in this matchup. Ottawa is terrible defensively, but Montreal is nothing special. So if they're going to be popular, I think they're a reasonable fade in GPP.
Well, talk about streaming against San Jose. Another team that we stream against is the Blackhawks. So we mentioned the Buffalo before. I mean, one good thing I like about Buffalo now is that their power play and line one correlate together perfectly. I always like that. I always like where line one is also the power. Also, all three of them are on the power play unit. Like, dude, you could literally play all 5 power. Like, you could play. Yeah, I could go right now and play Buffalo. I could play all 5 power play guys. Like literally all 5 of them.
We had a adjustment to that. They just had morning skate. So actually the top line is no longer fully correlates on the top power play. But you still get Tuck. You still get Tuck and Thompson on the top line and top power play. And then Benson is going on the top line, but he's on the second power play. So you no longer get that.
Middlestat is playing with the second line then.
Correct. Yeah, but that's still a really good power play stack. You know what I mean? I still love Buffalo tonight. That doesn't necessarily change a whole heck of a lot. Benson at I think he's like 2.9K. I think he's fine on that top line, even though you don't get that top power play. But I don't mind.
I like the separation. I don't mind playing Tooch, Thompson, Quinn, and Middlestat because at least like 2 of them correlate each other on the second line, the first and second line. Like I still don't mind that, and even playing Dahlin with them. I mean, I was putting that in before. Like you could play all these guys right in your lineup, like Quinn. Right, you're taking up a lot of winger spots. Right, let's say you play Saros at goalkeeper. I mean, 4,200 remaining. I mean, it's a tight fit, but I mean, you could.
That's when you could put in your Chandler Stevenson from the Golden Knights at 3,600. You know, I mean, you could do something like that.
But you could do Ridley Gregg, right?
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah,
right. If you don't want to play Dahlin, right, you could do something like Gregg, and then you could play Kachuk.
Yeah,
in the utility spot, and you have 4,300, and you could play someone like Chabot. I guess that's at 31. I mean, you could do something like this,
right? Yeah. No, I like that.
I mean, but Buffalo's not going to be sneakier. I mean, Buffalo's still going to be. I mean, Buffalo's probably top at least in the top 5 in ownership wise, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Rob is asking about why we. I don't want to condemn people, but why? This is where NHL DFS there's an edge. Okay, so we have Rob in chat, and I don't want to call out Rob. He's like, how about that Seattle 3 line for a cheapie? So he's talking about Seattle's 3 against Edmonton, Toivonen, Gord, and Bjorkstrand, which is, I mean, They're not cheap.
It's a very
5K per, right? And he's
yeah.
talking about Arizona 3. Where's Arizona? Arizona 3. Bugstead, Gunther, and Cooley or whatever.
Yep.
You know my attitude. You get like good luck. Well, welcome to my contests.
I actually
on an 11 game
always
slate, if you're on an 11 game slate, if you're looking to play like heavy underdog third lines, like like, dude, you don't need these. Like, if they do well, great, but I mean, you have to get everything else in your lineup right as well. And the most likely scenario is that these guys don't give you enough, don't give you anything.
Yeah, so Seattle 3 actually plays a reasonable amount of ice time. They're actually a pretty decent line. So I would be okay with Seattle 3, but not Arizona 3. No, thank you.
Play these guys
Seattle
as one-off. I don't mind. See,
yeah.
Like, I don't mind. Like, if you
Right.
want to play Tolvanen or whatever as a one-off, go for it. But I mean, I'm not a big fan of taking minus 200, plus 200 underdog, third line, 17-minute players, you know, like on an 11 game slate. Like, this is like this is what you do on a 3 to 5 game slate type of thing.
Right.
So like just stick to the teams that are projected to score a bunch of goals. Obviously, the larger contests that you play, the more these open up as options.
Right.
But like, if I'm playing the $40, 550 man contest, like I literally don't play. Like, it's very rare for me to play any underdog full lines for anyone, just you don't need, you just don't need to. It's unnecessary. And what ends up happening in these contests, you see these lines being 3 or 4% owned when they really should only be 1% owned. And then you see lines like it's quite possible we go in to today and you open up the ownership and Tampa Bay, Kucherov is 14%, Point is 12%, Stamkos is 13%. And you're like, well, yeah, they're combinatorically, they are the most owned line at an average of like 13%, but it's quite possible that they should be 18 or 19% owned, right? That they actually are under-owned, even though they are the chalkiest line for raw ceiling. And then you may see, Edmonton be like 6% owned, and maybe they should be 11% owned. And then you see all these like value stacks that are like 2 or 3% owned, and you go, these all should be 1%. These all should be 1% or less owned as a stack. Right. And I think that's the edge, especially in the smaller field contest, because I'm constantly amazed by ownership that, I open up the app and I go, why is some days Nathan McKinnon is 40% owned, and I go, why are people playing 40% owned Nathan McKinnon Colorado 1 lines on a 9-game slate with so many other options? And then there's some days where you open it up and you look and you go, why is Connor McDavid only 8% owned on the slate? And you go, what were people doing? Well, who are people playing?
Right. Yeah. Ownership in hockey is very, very odd. It's definitely different than other sports, in my opinion.
Like, I could see Ottawa on this slate being overowned.
Yes, I agree.
And it doesn't mean you don't play them. It's just that I think I'm more likely. So here, this is what I mean by price sensitivity. I think I'm more likely to play Giroux as a one-off than Tkachuk as a one-off, just simply due to the $2,200 difference in price.
Yeah, I would not one-off Brady Tkachuk today.
And I think if you don't play Tkachuk and you still want to play Ottawa, I think playing Stützle, the second line.
Yeah, go to line 2.
Right, go with line 2, who still have 2 power play 1 guys on it. And the thing about
Batherson, Stützle, and Shabbat. So like do a PP1 stack without Tkachuk. That's one way of getting different in a really good game environment.
Right, and I also get the sense that Batherson is the type of person that if he's shooting, that means Tkachuk isn't shooting.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
At least on the power play.
Right. But I feel like Batherson and Tkachuk are more negatively correlated than positively correlated. Like Stützle will get assists, right? But like it feels like if Batherson scores, he's taking shots away from Tkachuk and Giroux rather than taking shots away from Stützle, who's not shooting as much.
Yep, I agree. Yep.
Anything else? Big picture on the slate. I mean, that's kind of what we do here at RotoGrinders Today. Kind of big picture it. It's not, not a deep dive. We'll have the slate summary out with Taylor. We'll have the expert survey out. This is all for premium members. Click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. And obviously, we're always available in the Discord, rotogrinders.com/Discord. Join it. Get all the line rushes, the morning skate news, goalie confirmations, everything like that. But is there anything else that you're looking at, Tim, from an overall perspective that we have not touched on?
Yeah, well, I'll be looking at, I'll be doing projections today, checking out ownership across the industry. Definitely just checking out the high-end players and their ownership. To me, that's going to be really hard to gauge and see like where McKinnon, where Pasternak, where McDavid land today in terms of ownership, because you might end up getting those guys very low owned.
Right. And you may, especially like someone like Austin Matthews. Like Austin Matthews, like we didn't even touch on Toronto against Calgary.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about them. That's
right,
how
like
that's how kind of strange. Yeah.
Right. If I told you on any, especially they have a good matchup against Calgary, but I'm even in any matchup. If I told you that Austin Matthews and William Nylander both had 4 points,
right?
Does that shock you? On like Toronto scoring 7 goals and Austin Matthews having a hat trick? I mean, like,
right?
There's nothing that prevents that from happening, and these guys have those types of ceilings. That this may be a slate that Austin Matthews is sitting there in your contest at 5% ownership, and he scores 40 plus fantasy points. Now, but you'll also get the games.
Yeah.
So anything, so that's it. So basically, check the Discord, check the slate summary, check the expert survey, check everything out here at RotoGrinders at Tasteful Tides. You can always, it's better, Tim. It's better to actually mention you in the Discord than it is on Twitter.
It is. If you ever actually want to talk to me, hit me up in Discord. Yeah.
Right. And we got NBA stuff later today. Are you on any of the NBA shows later also?
Not today. Not today.
Not today. Okay.
This weekend
so we do have NBA, and I also understand that they're canceled. So tomorrow's game, the Golden State game, is canceled or whatever. I saw someone in chat saying that the weather in Buffalo doesn't look all that good. Maybe there's a chance that they cancel the game in Buffalo, the Buffalo-Chicago Blackhawks game.
No, they canceled it yesterday. I don't think they're going to cancel it again today.
Okay, so this game is the game they were supposed to play yesterday.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think there's any worry about that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's any worry about that. Yeah.
Okay. And there's no worries here. So whenever you tune in Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Programming note, just when I've been reminding people all week, just so people don't think I died. Next week, there's no shows. That tomorrow's the last show until February 1st. I'm going on a cruise. I'm going on vacation.
It's cruise season.
Yes. I'm going on 2 cruises. Back to
Where are you going? Where are you going?
4 nights into the Bahamas.
Yep.
And then 4 nights to Cozumel, Mexico.
That sounds warmer than Maine, Blender.
Sounds warmer than everywhere. All I have to do is survive 3 more days of cold weather. We're gonna fly to Miami on Sunday. Get out. It's gonna be like 72 degrees, and I'll be like, okay, this is good. This is good now. We're good. I'm not a beach person, so I don't. It doesn't even matter. Like, go to Bahamas, go to the beach. I don't know. My wife, her mother, on the first cruise. The second one is a wrestling cruise, so I don't even care about that. That's a theme cruise. So we decided to take them because the biggest expense, Tim, is the airfare. right?
Right.
So it's like if we're gonna fly down to Miami for a 4-night Chris Jericho's Rock and Wrestling cruise, I go to Carnival, and we've gone on so many Carnival cruises that we get these deals and stuff. And I'm like, is there any deals? And it just so happens that this 4-night Bahamas cruise, it's like, do you want to come on this cruise with and you just have to pay the taxes? I'm like,
That's
well,
perfect.
I would love to do that, right? We're going down there anyway, so give me a $68 cruise for 4 nights. Fine, give it to me. So that's where I'll be. But people will still DM me.
Have fun.
Tim, people will still DM me. I guarantee you. I'll be on the cruise. It'll be Monday. It'll be, Monday at 3:00, and someone will message me asking, where's the show? Right? Something like that.
Yep.
Am I dead? Right? Has anyone seen him? Right? They didn't see me tweet for 2 days. Is anyone dead? Did I get fired from RotoGrinders? That'll be another one. I guarantee you. So, he hasn't done a show all week. Did RotoGrinders did he get rid of Blender? I'm going to get that, right? And then I do my own streams on my own channel. I'm going to get messages there. It's like, oh, have you stopped doing these shows? And this is why I remind people every day for a week. So hopefully all the people that normally listen right, that just because someone misses one day. Look, Tim, your internet was out on Tuesday. You didn't die. You weren't dead.
Nope. Yep. Still here.
Still here. Stuff happens. Okay, so hit that like button. Hit the notification bell. We got Grinders Live later tonight. We got Crunch Time for the NBA slate. We got MMA tomorrow. We'll be talking. I'll be having John Squirrel Patrol on. We'll be talking NBA and MMA and NFL. We got NFL playoffs. We got a 4-game slate on draft.
4-game slate. A real slate. I'm excited.
A real slate. So we'll mostly
Yeah.
So screw the NBA. Tomorrow is going to be NFL playoffs slate, and then some MMA. That'll be with Squirrel Patrol. So tune in tomorrow. Tune in normally, other than next week until February 1st, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern. Talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props and pick'em on RotoGrinders today.